and welcome to episode 57 of This Week in Germany. We'll be bringing the world to Germany and Germany to the world with news for the week beginning the 2nd of February 2015. My name's Daniel.
And my name's Rob. Each week we bring you stories from the news, society, and culture in the English language. If you want to find out more, including ways to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Spreaker, and SoundCloud, head over to our website, thisweekingermany.de.
Elections took place in Greece this week, but why should Germany care? We'll be talking to Elisa Simantke in Athens, who'll explain the situation to us.
We'll be talking to best-selling author Adam Fletcher about his new book titled Make Me German.
Our German of the week is the former President Richard von Weizsäcker, who died this week aged 94.
And we'll take you to Steinplatte Winklmoosalm for our destination. You might want to find out why to visit this area before the temperature rises.
All that, plus the rest of the week's news in brief, coming up.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Wenige Tage nach dem Regierungswechsel in Athen sind Verstimmungen zwischen Griechenland. Bundeskanzlerin Merkel hat sich gegen einen weiteren Schuldenerlass für Griechenland ausgesprochen.
Ideen aus Athen also kommen hier gar nicht gut an. Übermäßig alarmiert sind die Deutschen aber auch nicht.
Germany has repeatedly voiced its strong opposition to the change in direction of Greece's economic policy.
And the German central bank president has said he hopes the new Greek government won't make any promises that it cannot cash.
How far is Europe worried? How far, what is Angela Merkel saying over breakfast this morning in Germany? What is the ECB?
A big topic for the media this week is how the recent elections in Greece would affect Germany and the euro. To provide you with a little background, Greece had a high amount of debt before 2008, but after the Great Recession, they found it tough to pay it back. So the biggest financial powers in the Eurozone lent the country money, in return for big cuts in public spending to bring down the level of debt.
However, those spending cuts imposed by Europe's financial institutions, together known as the Troika, hit the country hard. Showing Greece's disappointment with years of cuts, the recent elections in Greece were won by anti-austerity left-wing coalition party Syriza, led by Alexis Tsipras. As you heard, the German press and politicians were concerned that, with an anti-austerity party in power, the country might not stick to its agreements.
But why are the media looking to Germany for a reaction to elections in a completely separate country, despite the fact that Greece has a significantly smaller economy? To put it simply, should Germans care about the Greek elections?
To answer these questions, political journalist for the newspaper Der Tagesspiegel, Elisa Simantke, is joining us from Athens. So, Elisa, can you give us a quick overview of what's happening in Greece?
Yes, we had the election last week on Sunday, and Syriza was winning, the left-wing party, which was, especially the people in Greece saw it coming because they were really disappointed and unhappy with their current government, which did all the Troika program we will talk about later. So it was sure that there's going to be a shift in power in some way, but no one really knew how big this shift will be. And so it was kind of a surprise that Syriza had such a clear win. This is also the reason why they are now very sure of themselves and start to renegotiate the whole program, the memorandum, how they call it over here, because there was kind of a memorandum of understanding about all these social cuts, about the privatizations, about the payback of the debt. And now they want to renegotiate it, and this is something which is not very appreciated in Europe, and especially with the German government.
Yeah, so 270 billion euros was lended to Greece from the International Monetary Fund, the European Central Bank, and the European Commission, after Greece wasn't able to borrow money through the usual means on the financial markets. So out of this 270 billion euros and all of these big financial institutions, how is Germany involved in all of that lending? What ties Germany to Greece in this case?
So Germany has, as one of the major countries in Europe, the biggest stake at the FSF, which is nearly up to a third. I'm not sure if it's 27 or 29%, but it's something about that. So they pay a big amount of this money. They already paid like 15 billion with the first program, and now that we have the second program, it's up to 144 billion all in all. And like I said, Germany has a big stake in that. So it is in the German interest to get back that money, though the Greek people see it a bit different because they're seeing other ties. They say, for example, that Germany and its export economy, which is really huge in Germany, has owned a lot of money with the Greek people making debts. So the German idea of Greek didn't have any money anymore and we were giving all to them is not so much seen alike here, because they say we wouldn't have made so much debt if we wouldn't have bought all these German products. So there's maybe a bit of a different point of view on that. But as the Germans see it, they have lent a lot of money and they want it back, and in a way, they want the Greek to show that they are changing things, that there are reforms, that they are trying hard, because the Germans think the world is working.
Do Germans really need to care who wins an election in another country?
In this case, I'd say Greece is an emotional case. It's been the only really... When you see how it was covered in the German newspapers during all that time, it's been covered in a different way than Ireland, Spain, or Portugal. Somehow it was very emotional from the beginning. There were really hard arguments, also inciting articles in the German newspapers against the Greeks, where they say they were lazy and they are corrupt and they don't like working. And on the other side, there were the Greek who were also very emotional about that case. You maybe saw now the discussions about the war reparations, about comparing Hitler and Merkel. So you cannot say that it was a very neutral discussion from the beginning. So coming up to this election now, it somehow is a result out of all this crisis, out of all these talks, and so the Germans are still interested in that. And now that the Greek will negotiate all of it, it's coming up again. I would say in the time in between, the Germans weren't that interested anymore. And if the old government, so the Nea Dimokratia government, would have won this election, then it would have been like one day coverage in the newspaper and then forget about it, because everything stays as it is. Now that everything is open again and everyone starts to argue again, it's of course very interesting for the Germans.
Yeah, and speaking of the media coverage, The Economist ran with this story in their front cover this week. It had a picture of a Greek statue with a gun saying, "Go ahead, Angela, make my day." And it described Greece's challenge to Germany, is how it put the words on its front cover. Greece's challenge to Germany and the euro. It put Germany first, which is interesting. So how have politicians and the financial press reacted to the Greek elections and specifically their impact on Germany?
Germany is always seen as the head of this austerity management, I maybe say. So the idea that a country has to save a lot of money, that they have to do cuts, that they have to lower the pension, that they have to reduce their minimum wage, this was mainly driven by the Germans. I wouldn't say only, like they say in Greece, because I think this is too easy, but it's a way of thinking which is very popular in Germany. And you can also see that in the reactions of the politicians who are saying that there will be no renegotiating, there will be no haircut. But Germany has a very strong point in this. You saw Sigmar Gabriel, who is the leader of the Social Democrats, going together with Angela Merkel on that topic. So you could see that it's not only an issue of the conservatives in Germany, it's more or less consensus, maybe not Die Linke, which is a left-wing party which identifies themselves very much with the Syriza movement, but I think the Greens are maybe a bit divided about it, but all the other parties are going with this German narrative, and this is very strong. And it was because the Germans are seen like the head of the Troika by a lot of southern European countries.
Yes, and even at the World Economic Forum last week, Angela Merkel said it doesn't matter who wins the election as long as they pay back their debts. Wolfgang Schäuble, the finance minister, said we'll work with the new government, no problem, but they have to pay back their debts. That's a common theme.
Because they cannot say we don't want Syriza to win, because this would be really bad, because then they would have been told that they are influencing the election. But they were trying to tell the people to vote responsible, and they didn't really want to renegotiate. You could see that before the election coming.
Elisa Simantke, political journalist for Der Tagesspiegel, thank you very much for joining us here on This Week in Germany.
Now for this week's News in Brief. Due to ongoing security concerns in Europe, the German government is stating that it will increase data retention policies to better protect against possible terrorist threats. Data security is a very touchy subject in Germany today. Many are not excited by the prospect with granting more government power to keep the public's data. And this week, a journalist from one of the largest news agencies in the country, Die Zeit, has reported that the German intelligence agency, the BND, is already collecting about 22 million pieces of metadata every single day. This data comes from foreign phone calls and SMS text messages, though no specific source for exactly how or where this data is being collected. On top of this, the government would not disclose if the gathering of this data is being reported to the Data Protection Commissioner, which is currently required by law. Many that are concerned with data privacy are not happy with this new discovery, and are stating that the government is using these attacks as justification for collecting as much information as they can. Donating sperm in Germany is a relatively simple process, but the laws around being an anonymous donor are a bit vague. This past week, the Federal Supreme Court, the BGH, ruled that children of any age who came from sperm donors have the right to know who their biological father is. The reason that this is such a big case is that the laws have been switched back and forth in the past. Donation clinics have always been required to keep records, but could promise the right of anonymity to their donors. In 1989, courts ruled that every citizen had the right to know where they came from, and that donor records had to be shared if asked for. In 2007, laws were made that said donors could opt out of ever sharing their identity with their biological children or legal parents of those children. Now the Supreme Court has ruled that children have the right to receive information on their biological father. Sperm donors in Germany can no longer choose to stay anonymous, though only the actual child, not their legal parents, are able to request this information. There's been a lot of tension between Germany and Russia due to the issues in Ukraine right now. With the economic sanctions hurting both sides, unusual reactions can occur. Some Russian lawmakers are talking about making a case that the German reunification in 1990 was an illegal land grab by Western Germany. They claim, unlike Crimea, no referendum was made and the West simply took the Soviet-controlled land. Not all of Russia feels this way, though. Former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev has spoken out against the plan of attacking German reunification. He has said that it was a good thing that the West was able to peacefully solve the uprising happening in Eastern Europe. The results came in this past Friday showing that Germans are really enjoying their beer. While Germany is known for its love of beer, it's news because it's the first time that sales rose in over 8 years. The Federal Statistics Office said that 95.5 million hectoliters of beer were brewed in 2014. That's over 9.5 billion liters. Most of this beer was consumed in Germany, but sales have also gone up abroad. One of the ideas behind the rise in beer sales was that Germany won the 2014 FIFA World Cup. Sales of German beer were extremely high during and right after the games, around the world, and especially, not surprising, in Germany itself. And that's the news in brief. If you'd like a quick and simple way to keep up with the latest from Germany, sign up for our weekly email newsletter, which you can find on our website, thisweekingermany.de.
This week I spoke to best-selling author Adam Fletcher, whose books Denglish for Better Knowers and How to Be German have been favourites with Germans and those with an interest in the country. Now his new book, Make Me German, sees the intrepid author take on a series of challenges in order to bring himself closer to understanding the country where he lives.
My name is Adam Fletcher, and I'm a man who writes nice things about Germans.
So you are the Spiegel best-selling author, already that sounds great, of How to Be German in 50 Easy Steps, Denglish for Better Knowers, and Make Me German is the title of your new book. So could you run me through the list of subjects in Make Me German and the concept of the book?
Sure, yeah. So the concept first, because it kind of leads to the challenges themselves, is the first two books did quite nicely. I mean, like How to Be German has been on the bestsellers list for about 1.5 years. So I got quite a lot of punditry jobs out of that. So I would get kind of wheeled out on TV or wheeled out on the radio and asked a lot of questions about Germany. And I found that very often I didn't have any of the answers to those questions. And I was kind of thinking, I should really do something about that now. Like I should write a book where I kind of really educate myself on German society, like I should have done before I wrote those first two books about German society. Yeah, and so I kind of collected a group of my German friends together. I called them the League of Extraordinary Germans, my leg. And I kind of just consulted them, what do I need to do before I will be fully integrated in your eyes? And so they would kind of discuss amongst themselves and come up with these challenges for me. And so, for example, I told them I'd never watched any German television, and they were, well, that's just not acceptable that you've never watched German television. We're going to create a list for you. And so they prepared a list for me of the best of German television, the most null 15 of German television, and then the worst of German television. And I decided I would watch 70 hours of German TV over a period of 1 week. So kind of treating it like a job, only a job where you also have to work weekends, and your job consists a lot of watching Frauentausch and Shopping Queen, which is much worse actually than real work.
But I wonder, what has been the reaction from Germans to your books? Because where it could go is it could be that you're making fun of Germans, that you are poking fun at them, or it could be that they also recognise these things which are typical about German culture and that they can laugh about it. What's been your experience with that?
I think this was the big challenge. Is that I think I could have written a book which foreigners would have liked, and which I could basically have just made fun about Germans. It's very easy to look at something and go, that's silly, look at you, what you're doing is silly. That's very easy to do, but I really didn't want to write anything negative. Like, it would have to be positive. So if I wanted to be mean, I would have to justify why I was being mean, or try to understand why culturally it might be that way, or to find the positive in it. And so the positive in this kind of very direct form of German customer service is when someone is kind of nice to you, it's genuine. Yeah, and so you can always find something positive and something negative. And so in the book, I worked very hard to present things in a positive light so that Germans could enjoy it as well. I think for me that's the sign that the book really worked, because I've had contact with so many Germans who've told me, you did a really good job with that, and I bought it for my cousin in America, I bought it for my French boyfriend, or I met a woman who is the HR human resources director for a startup here in Berlin, and she said they have a stack of my book sitting in the HR department, and whenever a new foreign employee starts, they present them with my book as a kind of welcome to Germany, this will explain everything to you. And so that's for me a sign that I have done a good job with that book, that both Germans and Auslanders can enjoy it. I was lucky because the book came from a blog post which I wrote called How to Be German in 20 Easy Steps, which was a kind of crazy viral success, which is what resulted in me getting contacted by my publisher in the first place. So the feedback was so amazingly awesome to this blog post that I was very confident going into the book. I think otherwise I would have been really scared that the reaction would have been terrible to the book, and I would have been kind of hounded and driven directly to Tegel and put on a plane. But the feedback to the blog post was so positive that I was confident that the tone was already right, and when it came to turning it into a book, it was actually a very easy process, because the kind of market research had been done. I'd already found the right tone of how to poke fun but also do it in a supportive, funny way. Yeah.
You decided that you wanted to get to know the German character in more detail, German lifestyle, German society. What do you think that you've learnt from all of your books that you didn't know before?
That's a difficult question, because I've learnt so much and yet also forgotten so much due to my appalling memory. I think that, like I said before, I had perhaps a very naive view that Germany was, the most fantastic country in the entire world, and everything worked here, whereas nothing worked in the UK or nothing worked in America. And I had this perhaps slightly naive view, and I still think that Germany is a fantastic, fantastic country, and many other countries could learn a lot from its politics. But it's not that it is in some way perfect, that there aren't a lot of problems with, for example, its education system. And so that I think that is one of the key things that I've learned. I've kind of fallen in love with Germany now. It's a love of a much greater depth, where I understand what it's good at, I understand what it's bad at, and I love it regardless of its some of its faults. And so that love is kind of deeper and truer than the superficial kind of love that I had for it before, when I would go back to the UK and be like, yeah, well, everything's better in Germany. So, like, we don't do that and we don't do that, and everything is just wonderful. Like, I don't do that anymore now when I go home, but I still kind of respect all of the great things about Germany.
Make Me German is available on Adam's website hipstery.com, priced €9.95, and you can also get it on Amazon, in all good German bookshops, and maybe even in some bad ones too.
Coming up right now is Destination Germany. We're taking you on a journey somewhere in the country that is well worth a visit, whether you're a tourist, a permanent resident, a foreigner, or a German citizen. Here we'll be covering the famous sites as well as the little-known corners of Deutschland. All that matters is showing you that Germany is an exciting and interesting place to visit. If you enjoy the destinations that we talk about each week, check out our website, thisweekingermany.de, and we'll have photos of each week's destination.
I really like last week's destination. We talked about a tiny community in the state of Hesse, and I'm sure that most of you haven't heard of the town of Gieselwerder before. But the great thing about Destination Germany is sometimes we go to a large place, and sometimes we go to a place which is small and tucked away in the countryside. But about this town, it was a small health resort, or it had a small health resort where visitors could relax in the countryside, but it also had an outdoor museum that specializes in miniature buildings. So you can see some of the beautiful rustic countryside architecture from high above without even getting in a helicopter. So let's get started with this week's destination. So what is it, Rob?
Yes, last week's destination was a little out-of-the-way resort town. This week's destination is a huge vacation region. It's in the area of southeast Bavaria, and it measures about 50 kilometers north to south and 50 kilometers east to west. Right in the middle of the region is Germany's second largest lake, the Chiemsee. There are over 100 small little towns and villages, each with something special to offer. This week, we're looking at the Chiemgau region, and specifically Steinplatte Winklmoosalm mountain area.
These sounds like the places that could be in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or something. Yes, well, it sounds interesting. I mean, this huge vacation region. So what made you pick this as our destination for this week?
Well, this past week, there has been a little bit of snow in my area of Deutschland. So I figured I want to know some more special places in Germany that I could go that caters to winter visitors. So while Chiemgau is a massive area, I'm going to narrow it down so our discussion is more about places that you want to visit when it's particular in the colder months.
Well, I've noticed that you seem to have a cold. I don't know if that's caused by the cold weather or your baby daughter, but if you're in good spirits, if you're not feeling ill this week, and you want to go somewhere for the winter, then you might think of southern Bavaria for the skiing. So, does this area have skiing?
Yes, you can certainly find skiing here, and it has some of the best trails in all of Germany. The specific mountain that seems to get the most attention in the Chiemgau Alps is Steinplatte, and the Steinplatte Winklmoosalm area. It has a number of diverse slopes that suits all sorts of visitors with different skiing experiences. There are 16 different adventurous ski runs that you can take, from expert black diamonds to the beginner bunny hills. If you like snowboarding as well as skiing, you're in luck because this activity is welcome as well. And there's even a snow park about halfway down that has a bunch of bumps and jumps that you can go on. All these trails can be easily reached by the lift once you get tickets. And also, if skiing on the mountain sounds fun, but you never really got around to learning how to ski yourself, don't worry, there are 3 ski schools available for you. And I almost forgot, aside from the numerous exciting fast-paced ski trails, if you want something a little more relaxing, slower-paced adventure, then you can check out the area's cross-country routes. They boast some of the most beautiful winter landscapes, and you can just glide along their well-maintained runs.
So what if you're one of those party poopers who absolutely hates skiing? What else can you do in the wintertime around Steinplatte Winklmoosalm, which is fun to do?
This area is loaded with other fun winter activities as well. Something that caught my eye were all the different hiking trails. You can go guided or unguided. through the mountains or along the Chiemsee Lake. If you want to get a little sporty, there are a lot of winter jogging trails. Or if you just want to relax, there are a lot of slow-paced nature walks that will take you by stunning views and make you feel like you're just walking on the clouds. And if you want some real adventure, check out the snowshoe tours, where you can walk across deep snow through untouched valleys and forests. You'll get to great viewpoints, as well as alpine huts to take a well-deserved break. If you want some entertainment that'll take your breath away without actually having to exert a lot of effort, then this area has some great winter sporting events to watch. Biathlons, speed skating, and dog sledding sound really fun.
If I wanted to experience some of these winter activities, where would I stay?
Well, it's actually not too far from Munich, so you could technically stay there and just take a day trip. But me, I would want to book a room or apartment in one of the many resort hotels or bed and breakfasts they have in the area. There are quite a few. And besides getting to wake up surrounded by mountains and just being able to walk outside to your activities that day, you also get to experience the local culture of the region. There are quite a few museums and castles to visit, as well as one of my other favorite things to do on vacation, checking out the local restaurants and cafes. If you're looking for some winter fun in Germany, I suggest checking out Steinplatte Winklmoosalm's mountain area and all that it can offer you.
Next up, our German of the Week section, where we put the spotlight on a prominent person from this week's news, a German citizen or even a foreigner who we deem an honorary German, who has had an effect, for better or worse, on German culture, society, or politics.
Our German of the Week is Richard von Weizsäcker, the former German president who died this past week at age 94. He took the position of West German president in 1984. Though it was more of a ceremonial position, it was he who was there when the Berlin Wall came down and the reunification was decided. He held this role of president until retiring in 1994. What Richard von Weizsäcker was most well known for were his beliefs on how the German people should view the Second World War. He made it clear to the German people, as well as the world, that their country would face responsibility for the aftermath and the problems it brought. It was what he said while he was in office that set the tone for how many German politicians and leaders would address their past into the present today. Many still look to him as a symbol for peace and an inspiration for helping build a more unified Europe. And that brings us to the end of episode number 57. We'd very much like to thank you for leaving all your ratings and reviews on iTunes.
This one from Teuton K in the United States version of iTunes reads, I'm an American listener who enjoys this podcast. The two hosts present professional news with some humor, they share knowledge about German cities to visit and people to know, and often have interesting guests. Good listening all round.
Thanks for the review, Teuton K. If you're an iTunes subscriber, please leave us a 5-star rating or review. It's one of the ways you can support our podcast for free. It helps us find new listeners, plus we might even read them on the program.
This Week in Germany is produced by me, Daniel Winter. It is written and presented by myself and Rob Bishop. And our correspondent from Athens this week was Der Tagesspiegel's Elisa Simantke. You can find her on Twitter at @FonElisa.
And thank you, Adam Fletcher, for appearing on the program. His book, Make Me German, is available on hipstery.com for just €9.95.
If you'd like to get in touch, subscribe to us in iTunes, get weekly email updates, or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Spreaker, or SoundCloud. All the details are at thisweekingermany.de. Also, a quick reminder, next week we'll be reviewing the movie Himmel über Berlin by director Wim Wenders, in English titled Wings of Desire, as part of February's Film Club. Watch it this week and leave your comments via the Contact Us section of our website, and we'll read them out in the next episode. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next Monday with more from This Week in Germany.